with your hosts, Stephen Edwards and Maureen Edwards.
Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Maureen. How's it going?
Good. I wanted to ask you about working with children, like children, say, under the age of 12, and how would you recognize trauma? And I know people use the word trauma all the time, but I'm just using it in a way where you know that there's something maybe a little bit deeper or a little bit more in depth going on. How would you recognize that? Are there any noticeable traits or anything that happens in that child?
Well, I think the first thing to kind of think about is there's many different forms of trauma, and a guideline you could use would be the different forms of abuse. So it could be physical trauma from being physically abused, or emotional trauma from constantly being screamed at and belittled by friends or family as they grew up in their developmental stages. It could be sexual trauma if they were ever abused that way. So really you're looking at different types of trauma, and they're all going to present a little differently, but you do have some underlying themes. If someone was hit frequently as a child, one thing that would be an obvious trigger for them, or an obvious sign that you could use, would be if you're moving your hand towards them and they don't expect it, or even if they do expect it, how do they react? And there's one kid I've worked with in the past where anytime I would even get near him, his whole body shakes and it quivers and he recoils and he looks at you with his bright eyes with just fear in it. And to me, that's a clear signal that he has been hit before, and probably enough times that now he's developed a fear response. So that would be one sign of a physical trauma. On the other hand, trauma can show in how people act in relationships and their ability to get close to others. You mentioned in a previous conversation that some people have their guard up and they have walls and barriers and shields, and it's hard to really get close to them. And that is a defense mechanism. And it's a defense mechanism that is born for a reason. Obviously, there is a variability towards individuals, right? Everyone is a little different. Everyone is a lot different in certain ways. So one person might just be more guarded than another. It doesn't mean that they're traumatized. But if they're incredibly guarded, or perhaps they weren't guarded at one point in their life, and then suddenly over time you start to see changes where it's hard to really get them to open up or communicate, that could be a sign that perhaps something is happening in their life that is triggering that response. So trauma ultimately is a reaction to your experiences. And if you've had repeatedly negative experiences, your body is going to come up with ways, and your mind is going to come up with ways to adapt and to stay safe.
Thank you, Stephen.